I'm going to talk to you about fraudulent practices with Wikipedia. And I'm not saying that Wikipedia is a complete fraud, but I'm saying that there exists fraud in Wikipedia. And I've come across this in a few different ways. I'm going to talk about two specific ones. One is revisionism. Part of Wikipedia is people's opinion. And controlling a page means you get to state your opinion and keep other people's opinion away. And the other part is fake news. And what people do is they go to Wikipedia and they target a page. They say, okay, here's a page about New York City, and I want a link on this page to link to my website. So what they do, you'd think, well, I'm going to add my existing link. No, what they do is they go to their website and then they make up a page about New York City, and then they go to Wikipedia and then they add their own link. So they're not only making content for Wikipedia, but they're making content on their own websites that they can link to from Wikipedia. It's spam is what it is. That's the definition of what they're doing. And it's not just done by nobodies. It's done by Slate.com, CNN, MSNBC, and New York Times. They go through Wikipedia and they do this. They're constantly adding links. They come up with a topic, a page that they want to target, and they'll write a story that they can link to at the bottom that it has something to do with that page. It's spam, and it's fake news. So then you got the revisionism. There was a website that made an accusation against someone. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, I don't believe this accusation. This is an accusation and it's not fact. And I know I have a different interpretation. And I went and changed it just to add one word. And my word was, or this alternative opinion was just like a few words, and it immediately gets changed back. And it was something that is a belief oriented. And I know I'm right because their belief is wrong. Their belief was an accusation. They wanted to make someone look guilty who was innocent. It's often done. There's so many accusations against people. So if you got somebody like Barack Obama, and someone puts down his birth certificate has been proven to be legitimate, and you say, well, and you add someone disputes that, and here's the link. And you put in the valid information, Professor so-and-so, here's the video where he discusses it. I guarantee you that page will be protected, it will be removed, and you will be banned, and that will be it. You will never get anything on Barack Obama's page that says that his birth certificate is not legitimate. Maybe it's different nowadays, but back then, people were vigilant to make sure that it told their story. Anything that was questionable about Barack Obama that anyone tried to put in there would be removed, even if it was proved by the media. For example, he associated with terrorists like William Ayers, which he did. It's provable, and he doesn't deny it. So the narrative, the opinion narrative, is something you have to watch out for. When you read things like about Christopher Columbus and Thomas Jefferson, and the list goes on, George Washington, they're going to say, well, he was a slave owner, he was racist. You'll never get that word racist removed from there, because that's what that's what the mass media believes. Or Christopher Columbus was a rapist and a murderer. You'll never get that removed from there. Even if you provide evidence and say, well, it's not supported, it's not exactly what he describes happening, but some people accuse him of that. If you interpret it differently than what it actually says, well, guess what? What the media says is what's there. So I actually wrote to the owner of Wikipedia, and we had a discussion about it. And his opinion, I don't remember exactly, his opinion was, I agree with them. What I was saying is, the people that are doing these revisions on these pages did something that's not fair and not right. And his response was he agreed with them and not with me. So he has an opinion that you cannot go against. And basically what I'm saying is that he has a political opinion, and he agrees. That's why he does allow, he's going to side with the point of view of the people who go with that opinion. And if you have certain facts are not suitable for Wikipedia. So Wikipedia has a lot of good things. I'm not attacking. I read it all the time. but I'm just saying that I've noticed these two things. Don't believe everything. If it sounds like opinion or if it's not provable, it's not. I looked up the word Redskins because when I was a kid, I was taught that American Indians called themselves Redskins. So when I heard it's derogatory, I said, that's absolute nonsense. Redskins is not derogatory. They made up the word themselves. And okay, so read my watch my Redskins video where I prove that it's not derogatory. What they did was they tried to get, in the early 90s, Indians tried to get money if you use a term like Cherokee, like Jeep Cherokee. They wanted to be paid for that, and nobody paid them. So then they came back 10 years later and they started saying, well, if you don't pay us, then you can't use it. It's offensive to us. And then they succeeded at stopping organizations from using their words. So I looked up Redskins on Wikipedia, and it is one of the most insane Wikipedia pages I have ever seen. It starts out showing all sorts of legitimate uses for the word Redskins. And it talks, basically, the further you go back, Indians call themselves Redskins. And it says, here's a letter from 3 Indian chiefs where they describe themselves as Redskins. That's on the page. It's there. And then they start quoting anything from anybody, no matter who it was, whoever said anything about color, whether it was, if they said the color red, or if they said the word skin, they got quoted. So there was this guy, a French guy, who said, I met these natives and they had olive-colored skin. It's in there. That has nothing to do with the word Redskins. Why is it on the Redskins page? Because these people are just insanely trying to say it's derogatory. And the reason why they use this person as an example, because they're saying, look, this guy didn't call them Redskins. He called them olive-skinned. So therefore, Redskins is offensive. That's one guy. Or there's another one, they said, Redskins is offensive because this guy told his men to go kill Redskins. That's absolute nonsense. It's one guy, it's a small group of people, and if he had said to kill white people, does that mean that the word white people is offensive? It should not have been in there. It doesn't make the word Redskins offensive. All he's doing is showing usage of the word. So then as you go deeper, and this is a long page, and it goes on quoting person after person after person after person after person after, and it just goes on and on. It got to the point where I was like, I don't want to read this stuff. Why are you so nitpicking everything, every opinion that everyone ever had to say about the word Redskins? And then it gets to the point where they're talking about Hollywood, which has got to be the early 1900s. And they said in the early 1900s, Hollywood used the word Redskins to refer to Indians. And then, but then they said something stupid like always in association with war. I mean, come on, that's idiocy. Any Indian movie had war in it. There's no Hollywood movie from the early 1900s where they just did Indians and they weren't fighting against the non-Indians. So it was stupid. But they said that the Indians were referred to as Redskins, or they self-described themselves as Redskins. So they prove beyond a doubt that Redskins is a word that Indians use to describe themselves. But then it ends up with, oh, in modern times, it's a negative word. But the proof would not work on a typical Wikipedia page because the studies were not valid. I'm going to give you an example. They said, we looked up the word Redskins in literature over the course of a 10-year period, and 50% of the time it was in a negative sense, negative connotation. Well, that's not true. What they're really saying is there was an adjective next to the word that was negative. The word itself is not negative. They weren't saying, if you say you damn redskin, well, you can say you damn white people. That doesn't mean white people is a negative connotation. So it's a false science. And the problem with it is the same guy also checked the word Indian, and he said 50% of the time it's negative connotation. So he doesn't prove that the word redskin is being used negatively. And since it was 50-50, he doesn't prove that it's being used positively. And since he's really talking about the adjectives before the word, he has not proved that the word itself is negative. This study should not be on the Wikipedia page. And it wasn't a link to the study, it was the study. It was just going on and on and on. It was like paragraphs and paragraphs. Well, it should have been someone did a study, blah, 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 go read it yourself. And then someone else did a study, the same nonsense. And then they said, well, then they got to modern times. They said, the trademark office determined that it's offensive. What's the word? Pejorative or something? But they didn't give evidence. Well, or maybe they were making these claims. It's generally believed. As soon as they said that, no, it's not generally believed. That's something that I'm pretty sure I actually read that. That should not be on a Wikipedia page because it's not generally believed. And they even didn't support it. For example, one of the things they said, modern times, there was a study done where they called Native Americans, and 90% of them said they don't care if the Washington Redskins call themselves the Redskins. Well, that proves that it's not generally believed. Well, okay, so it's not general, but it's a part of the disproving of them. So then another example in modern times was that there's 3 Native American high schools where 99% of the students are Native American that have sports teams called the Redskins. And I believe when they say modern, they mean that they still exist today. What does that tell you? Why didn't the trademark office see that? And the amount that was of the material that I believe was pro-Redskin being a neutral, non-offensive term exceeded anything that was negative. When they talk about the negative parts, they didn't use any specific examples, and they didn't say things like Indians refuse to refer to themselves as Redskins anymore. They didn't say anything like that. But the beginning of the word, the terminology, was that they used that word to describe themselves. And then there would be a person's opinion where the guy said, no, these people did not refer to them as Redskins, only white people did. Then there would be another guy who said, no, they did refer to themselves as Redskins. It's not something that just the white people did. And it just went on, and they were putting the arguments in this page when it should not have been there. It should have been a link, and you should have been able to go, they should have said, this is an argument where someone states that it was used to describe themselves, and that should have been it. It shouldn't have gone through all these different arguments. So that's part of the craziness of Wikipedia and the revisionism, and in this case, how Redskins was one of the craziest pages I had ever seen.